So in this example, this is going to be a great example because it shows the story of Selena, the singer who was murdered, right? But before we get started, I want to say that the purpose of this video is not to uh, offend anyone or to, show that there's some type of conspiracy or anything like that. This is more so for education. I want you to use this example, the example of the movie and the real life event, to show you that there's no such thing as history or his story, as some people like to say, but it's more so high story. Remember, the word story comes from stars. And if you're talking about history, almost everything that I can think of in history can be aligned with some type of myth or some type of other folklore story. And then all of those point back to the sky. So you see a cycle of events happening down here in real time that match stories and history, or stories and folklore, excuse me. So for those who don't know, Selena is a word that is a play off of the word Selene, the moon goddess. And every culture, usually the Romans, the Greeks, and the Egyptians all have great stories about that mimic and match each other. And all of those stories are just really recordings of nature told in stories. And so we have Selena, the moon goddess, who's based off of Selene, the moon goddess, right? And another example of a word that might mean Selene is Luna. That's another version of the same story, just kind of shuffled up a little bit. But Selena is a story that keeps going on and on. As a kid, this show used to come on and on. The movie used to come on, and I never knew why. But now I kind of figured out why. So we have the Netflix recently re-released this show, and you should pay close attention to the details of the show. A lot of times, if you're trying to figure out something, you should look at behind the scenes, deleted scenes, and then the stats that are read on IMDb or Wiki about the show. And right off the bat, you can see that a lot of the news series has 9/11 in the language. A lot of it has Freemason numbers in it, letting you know that this is a important event to keep retelling. And the reason for that is because it's really just about the sky, right? So in the film that we saw, we had Jennifer Lopez playing Selena, and Jennifer Lopez is kind of like an eyeball, right? Because when she first appeared on In Living Color, they made this big introduction for her, and all she was really just like this background dancer. I don't buy that at all. I think she was always a planned celebrity, and they just created like an seemingly organic story with her by making her a fly girl turned into a movie star, right? And then there was some talks about Salma Hayek wanting to play or being offered to play Selena, but she refused it, right? But anyway, Jennifer Lopez plays the role. And right off the bat, when you watch the movie, it has a lot of themes about the sky. Almost every picture, you can always see the sky pointing on the characters. Now, what's important about this story is mostly when you watch any film, you'll see the sun shining on the character because characters represent angles of the sun. But in the Selena story, it's all moon-based. So you see the moon pointing on her, or just her appearing like the moon in the midst of all the stars. And this goes on and on in the film. And then you see Rose is thrown on stage, which is an association with the moon. Just think of Rose in Titanic. Rose is the lady, she played the moon, and Jack Dawson was the sun. So it was a sun and moon dance. And you see this idea over and over with these type of moon female characters. You have Selena, who is dating or married to Chris, which is a play on Christ. And now you have the actual Selena Gomez dating Chris Evans. And it's not by coincidence this thing happens over and over. But what's interesting about the Selena movie is there's so much dialogue in it about the moon. I think the first song that she sung was Blue Moon. The song that she has, I'm Dreaming of You, is about the moon. And it goes on and on. And then I think they were inspired, or there's a group in it called the Dinos. And the Dinos, for most people don't know, the word dinosaur or dino all comes from the moon. Even the idea of dinero, just think about your money. Everything having to do with money is a relation to moon. Money, mono I, this all comes from the moon. Quarter, a quarter moon, a dime, a dimmer moon. These are all words that point back to the moon. So when you see a character like Leo from The Big Bang Theory dating Penny, it's a sun and moon dance again. And this kind of thing goes on and on. And even the story with the dinosaurs can be, for those who know how to read allegory, you can see that it's really just the moon story being told over and over. you see, notice that the moon has all the craters on it, and then the dinosaurs, a rock came down and formed the ice age. This is the same thing with Titanic, the moon story, the iceberg. It's all over. It's like an encode, so to say. But in the Selena example, in the film, she has a lot of stuff where she's referencing the moon and or dreaming or looking at the moon. And I think this idea goes over most people's head. Even all of the toys and the branding and the resources that they use surrounding her and her marketing, it's all moon based. You see people painting paintings of Selena with the moon, and people don't understand. I don't know if a lot of people know that this is just her story is a retelling of Selena, the moon goddess, just personified as a real person or being done to a real person. And just remember the idea of celebrities or celebrites, they're movie stars or they're stars to represent and embody what the sky does. And this can be shown in a lot of celebrities, and I think it goes over most people's head. Whenever you have a character who's moon based, you should be looking for tragedy either from them or surrounding them. To give you an example, like the word Mac means moon, right? This is why you have the Big Mac quarter pounder at McDonald's. Even Don is a word that means moon. So you have Madonna, as you see, she progressed to a darker type character. You have Mac Miller, Bernie Mac, Craig Mack, and these things aren't hard to figure out. And then you have Christopher Wallace, who's Biggie Smalls with Bad Boy. It was kind of like the dynamic of Big Mac. And these are the same ideas that are shown over and over. And just think about any president or anyone that's assassinated. And if you can attribute it, you can usually see that they're a moon-based character, right? And what's funny is I believe there was a makeup line that came out from Selena a little while ago called Mac Makeup. And most people don't get the idea that it's really the idea of the moon, right? Even the idea of makeup in general is a play on the moon, makeup, where it comes from the word Mac. But yeah, I think there's a scene in the film where Jennifer Lopez is on stage. I'm not sure if this happened in real life, and they throw a bunch of roses at her, and that's a play on the Celine story. Now, in the myth of Selene, there's actually a painting that is called La Flor, and Selena, the singer, has a song called Como la Flor. And what's funny is Beyonce, who's also a moon personality, right? If you ever seen the recent movie she did, I Am King, it's all moon based, and she kind of has or is mimicking the story of Selena, and so to speak, they're both from Texas, I believe. Even Selena kind of blessed young Beyonce to become the new moon goddess, and both of their parents, Beyonce's dad and Selena's dad, look like they both have Freemason ties when you look at their history, right? But this character or this portrayal of Selene is seen in a lot of different stories, right? We see in Batman, we have Selena Kyle, who's Catwoman, who was a play on Selene. And of course, she dies several times. And it's funny, in the most recent Batman series, Anne Hathaway played Selena Kyle, but she's going out with Chris. I forget the actor's name, but I know his name is Christian Bale, which is a play on the sun. And he explodes like the sun at the end, sacrificing himself for the city, but he's not really dead. Him and her start a new cycle or a new moon separately. And that same kind of idea is seen in Titanic, where Rose goes back to where Jack died, and she dies, and then there's a new love story being shown in her granddaughter and the other guy, and it's kind of letting you know that if there's a new moon starting. And this idea goes on and on. But then we also have Selene from Underworld, who's a vampire who hunts werewolves. It's the same idea, and she is going out with this half hybrid who's like the Jesus Christ character of the show, and it's the same story just being retold, reshuffled. I think she died and then came back to life, but she's immortal anyway on the show. And there's even a X-Men, I think she's referred to as the first mutant or one of the first. And she's actually like a vampire, and she inspired the idea of Selene from Underworld. Her name is Black Queen. She's on X-Men, and she's opposite to the White Queen, which is Emma Frost, which is kind of like where you get the idea of Elsa in the Disney series. And it's the same story where there's a sacrifice involving both, and they're both moon or all moon goddesses. And it's funny because there's a actress who plays Elsa in one film, and she ends up being called she's in a show called The White Queen. A lot of times they do this with celebrities where they're casted in one role and their name means something else, and you just don't know that they're being swapped out, but they're really playing the same role in different films. And it's hard to give you an example of that, but just consider that actors are actually casted because of their names and there's zodiacal signs for different roles, and they're just retelling it in a different film. So, she plays the White Queen in this show, I believe, which is a play on the Elsa idea. And in the Mission Impossible series, she plays Elsa. And then look at this. We have Anne Hathaway, who plays Catwoman, which is Selene, the moon goddess, but she's also playing the White Queen, I believe, in an Alice in Wonderland film. And this goes on, and there's a cartoon or anime called Sailor Moon, where there's a character named Serena, which is a play on the moon name too. Sometimes they will shuffle the name up a little bit so that the story can seem unique, but it's really the same story. And then this is a character named Chi Chi from Dragon Ball, and the word Chi Chi also means moon. And it's so funny because a lot of people always you'll see a lot of memes referencing these ideas, but a lot of people don't know that there's occult people behind the memes for those who know what to look for. But yeah, it's Serena, and then I think there's a character named Lena or Selena on Sailor Moon as well. And just consider, what Titanic is a story about the sun sacrificing itself so that the moon could survive, which is Rose, right? And Celine Dion, which is a play on the word Selena or the moon goddess, and Dion, which sounds like day, right? Who does the soundtrack for it. And it's not by coincidence, Celine Dion was specifically chosen because of her name for the role of that film. And we see we see different mix-ups of the name Selena, or a play on the name, representing the same kind of moon character. There's Darlene from I Am Robot TV show. Just think about Black Widow died in the Endgame series, right? But what's needed for that to work is you have Yelena, which is her sister. It's a play on the idea, and you can see they kind of swap the roles of dark and then light moon, right? And if you know anything about the Avengers series, closely pay attention to all the characters that survived the snap. They're all star based, and all the characters that didn't survive the snap are all moon based. And Thanos is a moon based character. He threw the super moon, and that's not by coincidence. That's actually the story. These are all stories being told over and over. And then what's funny is Tony Stark's daughter at the end of the film is named Morgan Stark, which is a play on the moon, and Stark is a play on the word star. So they're talking. So she's literally the embodiment of an eclipse, right? And then in Titanic, we have Leonardo DiCaprio painting Rose, which is the sun painting the moon. But in Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, you have Lena, which is a play on the Selena character, painting the sun. And whenever you have these kind of combinations, there's always going to be a death or sacrifice or tragedy surrounding it. And sure enough, in that film, one of their closest friends died from drowning. Sounds like the Titanic story, right? She died from drowning. But if you look at the symbolism in the pictures of her in the series, you see the moon. And this kind of idea goes on and on. And I think this is Nathan Drake game. The characters are named after the sun, the moon. In the Superman series, you have Lex Luthor, which is a play on the Luxor, or like the Egyptian pyramid idea, which is a moon-based thing, right? And his sister's name is Lena. So you have the two moons versus Superman, the sun. And this goes on even with celebrities. You have Chrissy Teigen, which is the sun, a name of the sun, right? And then John the Baptist with her, and then their children's names are Miles, I believe, which is the traveling distance of the sun or the moon, right? And then you have Luna. And this idea is seen over and over. I mentioned Selena Gomez earlier, but now she's dating Chris Evans, which seems odd. And it's odd because they were paired. It's not like these two people really are just really into each other. And if you pay attention to the cryptic messages that are sent about how strong Selena Gomez is, something's up with this pairing. I would just be on watch out for it. But then you have, you have another character named Selena Powell. And an example of the moon goddesses are seen in a lot of different series. In the Suicide Squad movie, the heroes all had to fight the moon witch or moon goddess, right? And the actress or the character's name, their non-superhero name is, I think, June June Moon or something like that, right? And it all points back to it. And then one of the most recent X-Men movies, they actually did include Selene, the Black Queen, but they changed her race in it. And this is so that people don't catch on that we're watching a moon story, the Phoenix, right? The Phoenix rising versus the moon and all in this story. But what ends up happening in this story is Selena dies. She gets grabbed in the back of the head or shot in the back of the head like moon presidents. Think about Lincoln. And I can show you that usually there's a head shot or a head attack associated with uh, moon versus the sun. And I don't know if that has to do with anything ritualistic going on with the sun and the moon in the sky. But we see this kind of dance also with NASA and how they shoot satellites back and forth from the sun and moon, supposedly. But anyway, yeah, this Celine character, she ends up dying in this X-Men movie. She gets thrown off the train, grabbed from the back of the head. But what's interesting is Magneto doesn't even look down to where she could have been pulled, which is the ground. He looks up into the sky, and the next cut is a full moon. And from the Vampire Diaries, we have a character named I forget her name is Lena or Elena, but they play on the idea by just switching the name up a little bit, and most people don't catch on. In the Fast and Furious series, we have Elena, right, which is Dominic Toretto's girlfriend, and Dominic Toretto is a funny character because he's also the kind of the moon kind of character, and you have Paul Walker, who's the sun, right? But this is why we have Vin Diesel playing Groot, which is a play on the word moon. And then Groot is also a play on the rise of Groot from the Minions TV show. And it all goes back to the moon, growth hormone, just different ways of naming the word moon. But Elena is a character that's a play on Selena. And in this movie, her real life counterpart, her real life name is Elsa, I believe. And she's married to Chris, which is the sun and moon couple, right? And Elsa is also a moon goddess name. It's a play on Elsa from the Disney film, which is a moon goddess as well. But it's funny in the Fast and Furious movie before Elena dies, she's in a dark room, and then a light comes on slowly, right? And then she gets shot in the back of the head. And then at the end of the film, when Vin Diesel gets his son back, right? Him and his son are on a rooftop looking up at the sky and making a promise to Selena or Elena, the moon goddess, that he'll protect the child forever. And it's so many different unique ways of telling the same story, right? Two angels fly onto the plane and take the sun back, take the moon's child back away, you know. But what's interesting, what's really going to drive this home is the idea of the biblical story of Abraham. Whenever you hear the idea of Abraham, you should be thinking moon. Whenever you hear Abraham Lincoln or a character named Lincoln or even Link in Zelda, you should be thinking moon. So the story of Abraham and Isaac, right? And then just think about Abraham's story with Sarah, and where we get the term Sahara Desert. You need to follow the moon to get across the Sahara Desert. Well, these are all moon-based ideas. So when I heard that her father's name was Abraham, I knew what was being presented there, you know. We have the moon goddess, and then we have her father, who is the moon, right? And then her younger brother's name is Abe. And what's interesting is the actor that they chose to cast in this film has a bunch of like craters in his face, right? And that's to point that he's the moon. Most people don't get that all of it is a play on the moon. The Dinos, her songs, back and forth and so forth. But if you pay attention to any of Marvel's most recent selecting of shows that they're putting out in movies, it's all moon-based. They have Moon Knight, and sure enough, they recently casted Abraham, a famous actor named Abraham, and then the main character of the show's name is Isaac. And this is not by coincidence. These people are chosen for roles to play in films based off of what they represent in the sky. But it's interesting, they just came out with a bunch of Selena Funko Pop toys, right? And they all have different designs, and the colors of her clothes matches characters like who play a Rose or who play a moon person in other series. And I think this is just going over a lot of people's heads. But yeah, just remember, celebrities are representation of the stars, and when they do their job, they get their marking on the Walk of Fame or Hollywood star. And I wonder if this whole star completes or aligns with something in the sky. But yeah, people I would be looking out for is Beyonce, certainly. She just seems like she's really sad and she knows that something's up. Like she must know her assignment is almost coming to an end. And you can kind of see it that in her behavior. But what's interesting about Beyonce is she has a sister named Solange, which is a play on the sun, right? Soul and moon. And then most people haven't paid attention, but Jay-Z's wacky hair all of a sudden, right? I think that's the point, that it's a sun and moon couple that's trying to solidify that uh, that he's supposed to represent the sun and she's supposed to represent the moon. And sometimes their names are hard to figure out who represents the sun and the moon. But I think Jay-Z's middle name is like Cole Ray or something like that, which is letting you know Ray points to the sun. But yeah, I would be on the lookout for Beyonce to kind of see, because she recently made that Black is King, which is a very moon-based show. And we know that Michael Jackson did something like that in the past with Moonwalker, and we know something happened to him. And it may not always be like a murder or seem like a murder. And these may be very natural things that are just happening. What I really want you to just think of when you see these characters, to think that they mimic something that happens in myth or in the sky, you know? And just think about what happened to Black Panther, which is a moon-based character, the actor who plays that in real life, you know? And it's funny, this scene here I just added to show you that Selena's mom, I think her name is Margot or something like that, right? And that's not by coincidence. You also will see a lot of Mars names paired with moon and sun characters or in between them. You know, you have Margot Robbie and Leonardo DiCaprio play side by side in films together, and that's not by coincidence. But yeah, what's interesting here is they're on the water so that you can purposefully see the mother teaching the moon how to sway the water. And you notice the water is moving. And you know, the idea of the moon moving the water. And this goes on. And if you notice that the deck that they're on is kind of curved like a moon crescent. But some other interesting things is when you consider that where all this happened, and happened in the Days Inn Hotel, right? And that's a play on the sun. And on the hotel door, I think the word mundo was written, which is a play on the idea of moon or Monday. Whenever you hear anything like moon, monopoly, monogamous, you should be thinking about the moon. And what's funny is on Selena's wiki page, it says mononymously known as Selena, right? Which is right off the bat telling those who know what to look for that this is the story of the moon just being personified in a character. Now, what's interesting is, remember, Titanic is a story really about the sun and the moon. Even the real life event has to do with the supermoon causing the iceberg to break off and cause catastrophe to this Titan. Just think about if that was myth, right? We're looking at the moon and the story of the Titans, right? And that's just why you have the play of the ice going on in it. It's the same thing with the dinosaur story, the Ice Age. But the Titanic supposedly went down on April 16th, right? Which is letting you know that that's an important time for the moon. And then Selena was born on April 16th. And then Selena's death was on March 31st, which is a play on 33. Whenever you see the number 33, you're looking at something that Freemasonry can be involved in. I'm not going to say all the time, but can be involved in it. That's an important number to look at when you're seeing events on the news or TV. You know, like if you see 33% more at the store and you're buying food, you should know that you're being played. It's not 33% more. It's a 33% bigger box, but not 33% more. And that idea goes on and can be demonstrated. You can easily look up YouTube videos to show you that. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But yeah, you know, like she had an album that was about pretty much a play on the idea of the moon. And then what's interesting is if you look up a lot of Beyonce's interviews about Selena, it's almost like she knows what she has to do. I think Beyonce even sung some of her songs. And just think about the idea of the disco ball playing with the Beyonce and the moon. Well, the disco ball is an idea of the moon. When people used to go to the disco, it was at night. So the moon was in the center of the room, shining around, sparkling, and whoever was dancing the best was literally like a representation of the stars in the sky. You're the star for the night because you're dancing the best around the moon. This is where that idea comes from. But yeah, Selena, so she died. The place that she was buried, or where she died, was Corpus Christi, which means the body of Christ. Right? And that's not by coincidence. The moon is buried into the body of Christ, and her husband is Christ. And her father's name is Abraham, Moon, and her brother's name is Moon. This goes on and on. Now, in the most recent TV show that she has, there's a scene where her, Whitney Houston is somehow out with Beyonce, and they both see Selena, I think, a few times in the series. And that's not by coincidence. That's to let you know that all these are the same characters playing the same story, right? Just think about what happened to Whitney Houston. She drowned, right? And just remember what I told you about Titanic, what I told you about the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, with regards to a moon character and someone or themselves passing or having a tragedy, and usually involving water. So what's funny is, well, not funny, but before Whitney Houston died, Clive Davis, Brandy, and Monica, who were like Whitney Houston's proteges, were outside doing an interview or somewhere doing an interview. And I think Clive Davis was hinting about something about the water, you know, and some people say it might be a conspiracy or a setup. I'm not trying to say any of those things. I'm just trying to tell you that real world mimics what goes on in myths. And the reason for that is because myths are natural events that are based off of the sky. And by knowing what these things are, you can see through real life events or a high story as it's so told. But it's interesting because they pointed right out with the Whitney Houston scenario that Monica, which is a play on the word moon, is sitting right outside there. And these are a lot of advanced concepts for a lot of people who might be lost on what I'm saying, but there's a lot of words that key off that someone is the moon, right? Like you have, just think about the idea of the Ninja Turtles, right? And they're all named after painters. You have Leo, who's the sun, and Donatello, who's the moon. The word Don is always associated with the moon, like McDonald's. And then you have what painting is Donatello known for? Mona Lisa, the moon. So these are representations of the sky and the moon. Now, I can expect you all to do a little bit of your own independent research, but if you just look at a lot of the shows she appeared in, and a lot of the songs and albums that she released, you can see the idea of moon all over it. And that's not by coincidence. It's not a person who just randomly liked the moon, or her marketing team liked the moon. She was created, or she was empowered because of her representation of being the moon. And you can see the same kind of idea play out with Selena Gomez, the singer. Just start looking up Selena Gomez's work. You'll see that on a lot of things that she's doing, she's aligned or placed as the moon. So that's pretty much it for this video. I think I did have a lot more information on Selena, but I just wanted to get something out so that people can kind of see it and kind of, make their own decisions. But, I want you to not think about this as conspiracy. I don't want you to think about it as, I don't want to offend anybody. I want you to really just look at events that go on in the world like this and pair them with something that goes on in the sky or myth or even other stories